Hello, my fellow adventurers! This is Mloentje, and welcome back to New World. We are here now today, not in Brimstone Sands, but on the roof here in Brightwood Capital. We are not gonna go over some quests that I love to walk through and show you where you can actually complete it and how you complete it. We are here to talk about something that I've been thinking about, well, a couple stuff actually, that I've been thinking about for a while now. I can say the thing I've been thinking about the longest is like maybe even like 6 months already. And that is changes that I would love to see in New World. We are in 2023 now. The game exists for almost a year. It's almost the end of January. Like it's time I actually make this video. And one of the reasons that I want to make this video is in the PTR right now, and that's also why I'm starting with this segment, because this segment, the next segment, is basically going to cover a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about in this video. Yeah, let's dive right into the things I would love to see implemented in New World for 2023. So right now on the PTR, we have actual leaderboards that they are testing out. And leaderboards is such a good thing to come to the game. Like, I've been thinking about leaderboards for a while now. Leaderboards brings in a kind of a more of a competitive mode across... Well, they are saying it like leaderboards will recognize players, companies, and factions across the following categories: mutated expeditions, faction war versus environment versus players, trade skills. So I can only imagine that mutated expeditions is gonna be like how fast can you clear a mutated expedition and of what level. Like, is it gonna be only level 10s or is it gonna be level 1? So, does it have like a leaderboard for level 1, so level 2s, level 3s? Like, how many levels is it gonna track? And it would be really nice if you can see like, okay, this company or this group actually cleared an M10 in like 20 minutes. That has to be done faster, and people are gonna push to actually get their names on that leaderboard. For faction wars, I can imagine that it's gonna be like, how many wars have you won? If they go in deeper, how much damage did you do? How much kills did you get? How fast did you clear the faction war? Like, they can go really deep into leaderboards. Versus environment, I'm not really sure how many enemies you killed, something like that. How many, I don't know, how many caches did you open? Like, versus environment can mean so many things on what they can actually track. Versus players is gonna be competitive, so how many kills did you got? I hope there's gonna be some how much healing did you do, because, well, yeah, that's kind of the most interesting for me. Trade skills, how many stuff have you crafted, I think, versus other players. Now, what I don't see in here, well, let's go over it a little bit. Every category contains subcategories. For example, faction war includes territory control score. Finish at the top of the any weekly, monthly, quarterly leaderboard rotations for exclusive skins and titles. Rewards cannot be earned in the PTR. So it's weekly, monthly, and quarterly. So quarterly is 3 months, right? Yeah, quarter of a year is 3 months. So pretty interesting that they're doing weekly leaderboards as well as monthly. I can imagine that some of the leaderboards are not gonna be weekly, but only like quarterly. I'm not really sure. We'll have to see when it actually gets to the server. But like I said, what I cannot see in here is it actually like tracking it. Is it tracking only on your server, or is it tracking across the entire game? Because later on I'm gonna bring up another point that would make it really interesting, that this leaderboard would be able to be like, it would, for instance, say mutated expedition, M10, 20 minutes cleared on Barry, on whatever server. Like, this group played on Barry versus this group played on this server. This group played on, like, leaderboards brings in a lot of possibilities, and it already brings a smile to my face. So yeah, I cannot wait to see how leaderboards is gonna be implemented. I was thinking about this for a while now. I'm really happy that they're bringing it in. I'm gonna make this ramble as short as possible, but loadouts and gear management. Now, loadouts is pretty straightforward. They are talking about it already, that they're probably gonna implement it into the game. And that is basically, I think it's gonna be like buttons on the side here that says, like, for instance, I've got like a dexterity set on me that I play with. I got a luck set on me for my chest runs, and I got the healer set that I have equipped right now. It would be a button that would say, like, I click this button and I would equip everything that has to do with the dexterity build. I click another button and it would say that it's gonna equip everything automatically for me from my inventory that I need to do my chest run, so all my luck gear. Now, something I don't think they're gonna do actually is, well, let's repair real quickly. If I change my loadouts, would it also change my spec automatically? Because that would be huge. If I would go into if I notice that in an invasion, for instance, there's too many healers and I could go dexterity, it instantly resets my points to where I want it for my dexterity build. Like, that would be huge if that would be a possibility as well, guys. Not only your gear, but also your talent points. Now, for gear management, this is something I've been thinking about for at least half a year. If you look at my bag, you can see all the different gears that I have on me. I've got engineering gear on me. I've got weaponsmithing gear on me. I got skinning luck on me. I got mining on me. I got harvesting on me. I've got smelting on me. I've got leatherworking on me. And basically, all these sets can be implemented into 3 different sets. And why would they need to be implemented into 3 different sets? 1 for the management only, and two, basically, if you want to make a loadout for all of your sets. For instance, let's make this a little bit more theoretically. I'm going out and I'm gonna farm some wood. Now, once I'm going out farm some wood, I find some nice metal. But I need to change to my metal gear because I want to have that 25% luck to actually find rare items from the metal. Okay, I farmed the metal, but I come across some fibers of a higher tier. I want to equip my 25% luck gear for finding higher tier materials of the fibers, and then back to the wood. And you see what's happening here, right? I need to switch out my gears constantly. And like, okay, now this is stone cutting, this is weaving, where is my... And this is what is happening right now in the game. You are constantly trying to manage your gear and trying to equip it and look for what is what. And like, this set is kind of most obvious one, the harvesting luck. But all these sets do the same thing. If you look at the engineering one, for the necklace it's 5. For the gears itself, the gloves, it's 2%. So basically, if I equipped 5 pieces of these, they would grant me 10 engineering crafting item quality, with the necklace 15 in total. So I wouldn't need to make a loadout for engineering. I would need to make a loadout for weaponsmithing. I would need to make a loadout for armoring. All these sets do the same. Make one set that actually gives 2 armor crafting item qualities for everything that you craft. Make one set that says if I craft some stone, I have a 2% yield, and total it's 10%. Extra yields chance when crafting wood, when crafting metal, when crafting stone, when crafting whatever. One set that does it all. And then a one set for farming. I go out and I have a 25% chance, or no matter what I do, farming wood, farming stone, farming cloth, farming fiber, farming metal, it doesn't matter. I always have that 25%. That way you only have 3 sets, and you only need to have 3 loadouts for those 3 sets. Whatever you craft, whatever you farm, whatever you produce or will create from the resources you have gathered. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about for a long time now. And they can make it, well, they can say 2 things. Okay, we noticed that there's a lot of gears and they're kind of, well, they do the exact same thing because they can be obsolete. We're gonna remove all of them and just give you that set. They can do that. Or you could make it a little bit more interesting, and when you actually gather all 5 of one set, give you a token. And once you like get that token, if you get 5 tokens, you can exchange those 5 tokens into that set that's gonna cover all of the above. That's something I was kind of thinking of gear management, guys. This might be a longer topic, but this is one that I'm really crucial about. Like, having 20 loadouts for only your crafting, and then having a loadout for dexterity, having a loadout for your strength, for the shield builds, having a loadout for your ice gauntlet build, having a loadout for wars, having a loadout for... You can see where I'm going with this. Like, you would need like 25, 30 loadouts at least to cover everything as it is right now into the game. So definitely something that needs to change there. I would love it if we could get a standing faction territory standing reset. Now, why? Well, I would love 2 things, to be honest. One, I would love to be able to pick out of all of the options and not just 3. Because giving us 3 options and having to pick out of it, you're gonna get options that you do not want in that territory. And you're gonna pick options that later on you want to get rid of. And one of the main ones you want to get rid of is standing gains. Because at level 300, once you actually get to that 300 points standing gain gives you 0 benefits. So it would be really nice if you could get all of the options. Every time you level up, you get all of the options. And you could just go for standing gain. Like standing gain, standing gain, standing gain. Over and over and over again. I always said like storage is the most important one. If you got storage, pick it. Because there are only 50 upgrades for storage. And it is still true. But being able to get standing gained over and over again. To level faster to the level 300. And then at the end, being able to reset it back to 0. But still keeping those 300 points. And then being able to invest them all into what you actually want would be really good for the game. And one of the examples is like in Brightwood, I've got almost everything. Trading tax, property upkeep, gathering, station fee, storage, faction reputation, standing gain, house ownership. Like, I would love it if I could get rid of standing gain and invest those points somewhere else. I would love it if I could get faction reputation gone and invest those points somewhere else. Station fee, I do my crafting in Brightwood, so I'd love it if I could get more points into that. I do a little bit of gathering, but not as much, so I probably would get rid of gathering speed in Brightwood as well. Property upkeep, I would love if I could increase my property upkeep in Brightwood, because I have a house there. But later on, I might actually change my house towards Everfall. Then I don't want property upkeep anymore. So being able to reset it and pick my points out of all the options would mean that I don't have property upkeep in Brightwood anymore. And that would... It would make the game a little bit more linear on where you want to do what. Trading tax, I do all my trading in Brightwood, so it would be nice if I could increase my trading tax. And that's basically what I mean with being able to reset your standing, your territory standing, guys. Being able to set up the actual, well, the location that you want to. If you want to trade somewhere, like I know a lot of people probably trade from Windsward or Everfall. Trading and then station fee only. Like, the upgrades go in diminishing returns, meaning that every point you invest in one of the upgrades, you get less for it. I think the first one is like 5%. The second one... I'm not really sure about this, but for instance, let's say that it's 4.9% or 4.5% increase, and then you get a 4% increase. Then the next one is going to be a 3.5%, and it goes down and down until you get like a 0.1% increase. At that time, it's not going to be useful to actually invest in that anymore, and you want to invest in other stuff. And this would also mean that being able to pick out of everything, you could actually focus on what, where, in which part of the territory, guys. And that's why I think territory resets, territory standing reset is gonna be a really good option if they give us the option to pick out of all of the categories. Not just the 3, but all of the categories. The next point that I'm talking about, I think I mentioned this in a couple of videos already, but the faction vendors need a change. If we open the faction board, we've got these PvE quests in here and the PvP quest. The PvP quest, I'm gonna come back later on because that's a whole other point. But PvE PvE quests, pretty interesting that you can pick up quests, and well, they basically help you with territory standing and a lot. Like, you can see the first 3 quests that you do in a day are actually giving you like 480, 320, 320 for the quests. But only the daily bonus, the first 3 completed faction missions receive a daily bonus. So after that, it's gonna be like 200 or 150 or well, let's say it's gonna be half of the territory standing. But it still helps you a lot with territory standing. So definitely really useful. Now, for the rewards or the store, if they don't bring in skins for all of these gear sets and all of these weapons, then these are basically kind of worthless. As I see it right now, I've seen the rewards that you could get from the new quests, and they are awesome. They are way better than anything you can find in here. And they are the stuff in here is pretty expensive. Only thing that is interesting in the faction vendors, guys, is the gypsum orbs and then the Grand Rune of Holding. That's the only thing that I see in here that is actually useful. And they need to change this. The faction, they need to make this more interesting. They need to make these better. Like, they need to make this a whole lot better. Now, it's not only that you can find them everywhere, these vendors. It's also the next thing. And I talked about this. Well, I talked about a lot of the things before, guys. Let's take a look. Right now in the game, we've got these enclaves for every faction. We got the Marauder enclave over here. We've got the Syndicate enclave over here, and then all the way at the bottom here, we find the... Can I click on it? That's a quest. Can I not click on it? The Covenant Shrine, the Covenant enclave here, basically. And these places look freaking awesome. They really do really look good. But they're pointless. As you can see, there's nobody here. And this should be a, well, maybe not bustling, but it should have at least some players running around, right? It should have a meaning, this location. And this is why I think that having your faction NPCs in the cities is good. But the vendors in the, well, basically the function of being able to vendor stuff, it could move to this location. It would be really nice if the things that you can buy from your faction vendors would be in this location only. The PvE quests can remain, like faction PvE quests can remain in that territory. Now, like I said, I'm not talking about a faction PvP quest because that is something I'm gonna get back to later. But like, for instance, the PvE quests, they can make a lot more PvE quests. They can make like, have the faction vendor have like 20 different PvE quests that you can do in that territory. But have a vendor here that actually, like for instance, this guy here has, well, a blacksmithing table, and yeah, he's got a blacksmithing, a forge. So make this guy here sell all of the weapons for this faction. For instance, let this guy here sell all of the armor for this faction. And so on and so on. We even, and this is, well, this might be a little bit troublesome, we even got a cook here. Get the factions different foods. Now, this might be a little bit more tricky, because if you're gonna implement different foods that you can get on the faction that give different bonuses, if you don't implement it correctly, one faction might become stronger than the other faction. But you get what I'm saying with this, right, guys? Like, this place is just empty, it's void. Unless you're doing the quest, it's pointless. This place looks amazing, but there's nobody here. There's nobody to enjoy this. I still buy my daily gypsum, and I can imagine that a lot of people do. It would be really nice if you could actually see other people moving around here. People that come here for like, oh yeah, no, I need to buy my daily food, or I need to buy my daily gypsum, or maybe other rewards. Make the factions actually more interesting and actually make this place more interesting, guys. And that's what I'm kind of talking about when I want to see faction vendor changes. And while we are talking about faction vendor changes, guys, faction PvP quests are boring as hell. We've got enemy reconnaissance, gather intel, and stabilize. These three are the, well, most interesting. Well, interesting. Yeah, basically the stable quests that you do. You go to a location and you retrieve data. After you retrieve the data, you go to a different location and you hand in that data. You go to a location and you stand there for a minute and a half. And then you go to the enemy war camp, or the war camp in general, maybe not enemy, and you pick up 5 notes and you run back. Now, why are these boring? Well, these faction quests should actually like bring out open world PvP. But from 90% of the time, I think around 90% of the time, they don't actually bring out open world PvP. Like maybe 1 or 2 players, but mostly they don't. And doing these 3 quests, usually, as you can see here in Recount, this one is way out of the way out of these 2. So what would you do? You would just run these 2. You just run the object, you pick it up, you stand in the area, you hand it in, you stand in the area where you need to stand 1.5 minutes, and you run back. And then you do that over and over again. And depending on how many players are actually running faction quests, I believe, let's say that it's 20 players that's running it. It might take, because some of the quests on the map, like this is, for instance, almost halfway across the map. Some of the other quests are like really, really fast and really, really close by. So you can do those faster. So taking that into account, running it with 20 players, it might take you sometimes between an hour and a half, 2 hours to actually change your control of the territory, and actually being able to, well, most of the time you're gonna be pushing with multiple companies, and every company that actually got 10% of the faction quests done can get a chance to actually throw this into a war. Like, can get a chance. That is another thing that is baffling me. If you are the sole company that actually pushes a territory, like you do with your company 100%, you're guaranteed to have the war. I think that's how it works. Not the most best and most interested in PvP player, but I do love to help my company out when I can, and I do run some quests here and there when they ask for it. But they're just boring. They're running up and down for an hour and a half. Now, we've been talking about this during some quest runs before, and I basically came up with the next thing. All over the map, we've got these really lovely forts. But other than during invasion as a start point or the war, they don't really get used that much, right? What if you would remove all the PvP quests and actually make this entire zone into one giant PvP zone? And I'm not meaning like PvP for like just your company and different company your faction. I mean, like, once you enter this gate, unless they are from your company, they will become hostile. Like, turn this entire zone into a PvP zone. And for a specific time during the day, for instance, yesterday we had an invasion, today we can try to claim the territory. For a duration of like 6 in the evening till 10 in the evening, something like that, for 4 hours straight, you and your company need to try and hold the fort for the longest time. And it doesn't matter which company it is, it doesn't matter which faction it is. Even if another syndicate faction runs in here, they would turn up hostile towards members of our company. And that way you could actually have like a specific and a conclusion to who will take control of a territory. Like I said before, with the faction quests, if you take 10% of the faction quests done and the other company does like 90% of the faction quests done to actually switch a territory up, then it's even possible that the company that got 10% faction quests done still can get the war. And this is not right. The company that does the most effort should be the company that actually does the war, because they put in the most effort. And with a fort capture, like I'm suggesting, this would be out of the question. Like, if our company, in the 4 hours that the timer would be up, our company would be able to hold for at least, like, say, 2 hours. And other companies would be able to hold it for 30 minutes and 10 minutes and let's say stuff like that. But our company would be able to hold it for 2 hours straight. That would be... well, that would be a huge PvP fight, right? Now, the problem we have is that only a limited amount of people can be in this area at once. If you go over the limit, you basically get, like, teleported back out of this. I think the zone is, like, this big, something like this. So basically, if more people enter this zone than is allowed, I think it's for, well, basically lag, then basically you basically get teleported back out. So it's not really viable in this game right now. But I believe a system like this would be way more interesting. And it would draw out world PvP daily on specific times of the day, like massive world PvP. Like, every company on your server is gonna be playing to actually hold this objective. The company that owns it and every other company that actually wants to fight for it. And this will also mean that if one syndicate company controls, for instance, Reekwater, another syndicate company could take it over. Because that is not something that can happen right now. If we own it as a syndicate company, only Marauders or only another faction can take it over. And this kind of doesn't make sense. Like, you can have a whole lot more wars going on if you can have, well, company versus company. And this is also something a couple of people mentioned during these talks of how can we change the faction missions and why are they so boring and why is there not another system. That is, well, factions in general, if you think about it, they can just be removed from the game. Honestly, they can be removed from the game because it's a company that owns a territory. It's a company that fights for territory control. Like, if you remove factions in its total and just only have companies that would fight for territory, only companies that... it would make more sense, right? If a company actually puts in 50% of the faction runs and the other companies only do 10% of the faction runs, then your company gets the ownership. Well, not the ownership, but it has the rights to actually fight for it. If you know what I mean. These were some of the things that, well, that some of were thinking of, but I would love it if this entire zone could just transform into one PvP area. And it doesn't have to be the fort alone. Let's, for instance, say that right now, at one part of the day, like 4 hours, you could actually go to the war camp, and once you actually exit the war camp or go into like a different gate, you could actually go to a different server where everybody would be fighting. Like, you could go to the war camp, there would be a portal there, you go into the portal, and you get to another server where everybody that wants to fight is in the war camp, and you can group up there, and then from there you can move out. And the entire zone that you use for a war can be used for a faction control. Something like that. I'm real. It's still something that's constantly in my mind. Like, how can we change it, and what can we make more interesting, and how can we get world PvP, like actual world PvP, in this game more proficiently, I guess you could say. I think raid groups, and I do believe they already talked about it, but raid groups would be a really nice addition for New World for a couple reasons. One, let's say they don't change the actual faction quests and you still need to run faction quests. It would be really nice if you could just make a raid group where you could invite everybody that's running the faction quest to take over a territory in that one raid group, and you could see where everybody is on the map. Not just the 5 people in your party, but everybody in your group. It would be nice for instance, open world PvP. Another group is actually running, and you would be pushing the other group back, or you would be fighting so they can't complete the quest. It would be good for chest runs. Because right now, well, basically, I'm not really sure about this. They did make some changes, and it's better at this moment. But for instance, let's say you would farm Banes for the trophy upgrades that you can get from him. But you only do that in a group of 5. So there is still a chance that if your group doesn't do the right amount of damage versus the other groups, that you won't get a drop. Now, if you're all in the same group, well, for instance, I'm talking about raid groups, I'm talking about like 50 players. There is a system in this game that can hold 50 players. Okay, it's 50 players divided into 10 groups of 5, but it's still 50 players. It would be really nice if you could make 50 players to farm with Banes. Then everybody would get the drop, because everybody would be in the same damage pool. If you see what I'm saying. Chest runs, exactly the same. Like, you go on a chest run, you don't make 20 groups of 5. No, you make 2 raid groups of 50, and you run that way. And that way, kills on the mobs would grant everybody rewards if they actually drop. And you would actually see where everybody is. And this is also gonna kind of segue into one of the things that I'm gonna talk about later. But I feel raid groups would be really, really beneficial for New World. Cross server is gonna be really, really important. I do believe they already talked about trying to do cross server. And why is it so important? Well, we've had a lot of server merges over the past year, let's say. It's a year and a couple months now, or year and 2-3 months, something like that. But we have a lot of server merges, and basically the biggest problem with a low pop server is that you might not find enough people to do an expedition. You might not find enough people to actually do OPR with, or do chest runs with, or like anything that has the need for more than, let's say, 20 people, something like that. Or, well, yeah, maybe even expeditions, because if you have a server of 100 people, not everybody's gonna be online at the same time. If you have cross-server on almost everything, invasions is gonna be a little tricky, but I'll talk about that in the next segment. But for instance, expeditions, you could just queue up for an expedition, and everybody from every server could actually queue up for that expedition. Cross-server can be a huge tool in making somebody who feels that they're on a... Because a lot of people, there are... Well, maybe not a lot, but there are some people that love to play on a lower pop server. Because basically that means that all of your... Well, your resources are available for you. And not for the 1,000 or 2,000... How much is it? 2,200? 2,500 people that can play on a server right now? Like, for instance, if you play on a 500 population server, the likelihood of the resource you want to gather being there is going to be pretty high versus a 2,500 population server. But not being able to play OPR when you come online because there's not enough people online is an issue. But if you have cross-server OPR, then that no longer becomes an issue, right? So cross-server can be really, really important for the game, guys. And I do believe it's something that's gonna need to be implemented. And that they're already working on a little bit. Now that leaderboards are coming to the game, I only find it logical that we would be getting tournaments as well. Tournaments is another form of competition that we can have. I'm not gonna say like weekly, but monthly tournaments or quarterly tournaments that we can get a tournament to do. And this is something I've been talking about, well, thinking about at least for a longer time. A tournament for company versus company OPR. I feel like there is not enough fighting between the different companies. Like there can be way more competition. Well, maybe not fighting, but maybe like not in the toxic way at least, but more competitive. Like really just more competitive fighting. And bringing out tournaments would be really good. And it can be tournaments for everything. Like make it a tournament to have the fastest dungeon clear. Like it's a weekly tournament. This week it is, for instance, the depths that is going on mutation. Make it a tournament for a first, second, and third place reward for the people who clear it the fastest tournament. That can be linked towards the leaderboards, right? It's something like that. Or and this, yeah, I'm gonna fall back again, but company versus company OPR, guys, it needs to be a thing. And that's where raid groups again come in handy, because you need at least 20 people. Wait, it's 20 versus 20, right? Yeah, it's 40 people. So you need at least a bigger group to actually be able to queue as 20 together for an OPR. But if you could actually get 20 versus 20 company fights. And that way you could get like your tournaments. And tournaments can be, again, cross-server. Like everything is kind of linked up. Like you could get a tournament, for instance, like a trapeze tournament, where this company fights these 4 companies, and then the company that wins the most gets to play the other 4 companies that play in a pool, and then they come across, and eventually you're gonna get like one company that wins your server, but they have to fight against the company that wins of another server, and you can get a pool of these servers, and eventually there's gonna be like one company that wins the tournament for OPR, for instance, in New World, and getting like a title that says OPR champion or something like that. That would be tremendous. People would love that. Well, I believe I'm people, and I would love it. So I can only imagine that other people would love stuff like this as well. Tournaments can be and would be a really good implementation for New World, guys. I love invasions. Every invasion that I can be a part of, I will try to join. Like, I really love invasions. I always did on New World. I'm more of a PvE player than a PvP player anyway, but yeah, invasions are really, really fun. But I feel right now in the state of the game where we are, they became too easy. They became way too easy. The first time we actually had to fight invasions, we were only like gear score 600. And nobody was min-maxed, so you didn't have weapon perks, weapon perks on your weapon, so you hadn't the upgrades yet. You didn't have the right concoctions yet. You didn't have the trophies yet. Like, you see what I'm going? Like, we are so much more overpowered than we were at the start of the game when you could do invasions at level 50, that they became too easy. Now, what if we would have a game mode that would have endless invasion? Because right now an invasion kind of works as something that you need to complete to make sure that your territory and the upgrades you got in your territory don't get downgraded. But what if we have a separate game mode where you could just queue up? It didn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's not gonna be for like territory. It's just gonna be an invasion because you want to play an invasion. It's gonna be a separate game mode on its own, and it would be an endless invasion. There would be no 8 waves, because right now it's like wave 8, and if you defeat wave 8, you're done. It would be endless. And this is also, again, where, well, basically leaderboards come in handy. Because if you have an endless invasion, for instance, Company A could defeat wave 12, but then eventually lost. Well, Company B would love, for me at least, I would love to try and go to wave 13 to get on that leaderboard. And that could be a global leaderboard for like forever. It could be just one leaderboard that says like this company or this group. Well, yeah, again, I would make it companies. This group of players or this company actually got to wave 13 or got to wave 14 or 15. And it could be just a globe. And you would be on that list if you got to wave 14. It would be possible that you be on that list on first place forever. And that would hold some rewards to it, some honor to it, right? Being able to clear out so many waves, and it would also push other players to try and beat you. Again, getting that more of a competition in there. And getting invasion not only because you need to do it, but because it's something you want to do. It's a game mode you want to play. Because it eventually pushes you to your limits. That's kind of my train of thought on why endless invasions game modes would be really, really fun. And this also can be implemented again for tournaments. This can also be implemented for cross-server. Because if you have a separate invasion game mode, then that doesn't influence like the territory that actually would be downgraded, then people from another server that have a low population could actually just queue up for that game mode and actually play those invasions. You see what I'm getting with this? Like, everything that I'm kind of thinking of is actually linked to one of the other things I'm thinking of, and they can all benefit each other. Like, this is like I said, this is something I've been working on for at least half a year, guys. So we got 2 more to go, and then we're gonna wrap up the episode. So let's see on what we got for the next one. Right now in this game, New World, we only have one PvP mode, and that is OPR. And we already have a really nice map, and I do feel that having a second game mode that could be implemented really easily would be really nice for the game. Let's make sure that we don't die here. And one of the things that I was thinking of would be a capture the flag. Capture the flag would be really easy to be implemented in this game mode. You already have the map for it. So why not just get another game mode altogether? And what I'm talking about is we got this nice map here with 3 locations. What if there was, for instance, well, you can think of it 2 ways. You have a flag in the middle, and basically your team needs to capture the flag and bring it to the enemy base. Or you could have 1 flag here and 1 flag here, and you need to bring it to the other base and just leave the middle base out of it. That would be just a game mode just for PvP. Because I would leave every PvE aspect that you have in the game basically just out of it. I would leave every aspect out of it. No Baron, no summoning of NPCs, no actual building of gates, like nothing. There's a lot of people here who love OPR, but they really don't like the PvE aspect in this game mode. They just want to fight other people. They don't want to build stuff. They don't want to summon creatures. They don't want to go to Baron. And Baron, by the way, is obsolete in this game. If you can hold 2 bases and get every Baron against you, you still win. You still win. Like, you do not need any... Oh, you do not need any kill of Baron to actually win the game. You just need to hold 2 bases. That's it. So in that aspect, Baron is already obsolete in the game. But there's a lot of people who don't like the PvE aspect. So why not bring in a PvP mode on the same map you already have and just be it PvP only? Take a flag, bring it to the other base and plant it. And that would mean that it would bring a lot of PvP play again towards the game. It would bring more and different PvP aspects into the game. And I do believe a lot of people would be interested for a game mode like that. Another addition that I want to see to the game is personal recounts, guys. If I go into an OPR, half of the time, maybe even 60% of the time, I don't get to see on the scoreboard how much I actually healed. In wars, it's shown pretty well. In invasions, it's shown pretty well. But in OPR, which I play more than invasions and wars, half of the time, it just doesn't show how much I healed. If there would be a personal recount system, for instance, let's say here on the map, you have a recount system that you could click and reset. And it would show you the healing that you've done whenever you want to check your healing done. For instance, in an expedition, it doesn't show you damage done at the end. It doesn't show you the healing you've done. It doesn't show you the damage you have absorbed as a tank. It doesn't show you anything, and I would love it if there was a personal recount that you could refresh, that you can actually keep track of your spells. Now, I know in World of Warcraft, which I played for 9 years, there was a recount. It was an add-on you could actually implement, and it was called SCADA. And SCADA actually showed you everything. Like, it showed you everything. If I, for instance, healed with my Sacred Ground, and my Sacred Ground would heal me for 800 right now, but I would get my buffs up, the increased healing and the, well, the 3 heavy attacks in. And I do my Sacred Ground again. It would heal me for, I think right now in the build I'm working, it's like 1100 to 1300 that I could get. I think around 1300 that I could get for my Sacred Ground. It would be really nice if I could check my recount to see how many times I actually got to that 1300. And if there were actually instances where I got higher than 1300. That way I could see or try to test what I actually did to get those higher numbers and actually try to always get to that point, right? Always try to get the maximum out of it. And this would also kind of work as SCADA worked as a recount for everybody. Like everybody that was in your party, everybody that was in your raid group, everybody that was in your, well, basically in your battlegrounds that you would do, or the open world PvP that you would do, everything that you would do, you would be able to see the recount of what you did. And it would also allow you to click on other people, and actually show you their damage and what their skills did and what skills they used and how much damage those skills did. And this would also bring in a feature that would let people actually watch what other people do through their damage numbers and see what is actually viable, what is actually a really big damage output. SCADA would also, for instance, show you how many debuffs you removed, because there are implementations in the healing builds that will let you remove debuffs from players. And you could make a build that revolves around removing debuffs and not around like healing. You could make a debuff that gives, like, you get recounts for everything. And a personal recount or a recount that you could use anywhere in the game, I think would be, again, a really nice addition for the game. I would love it if I could change my UI. For instance, if I go into a party right now, my party is at the top left here. That meaning if I'm in an actual fight, in an OPR, in an invasion, in anywhere in the game that I have a group setting, I need to look at the top left of my screen away from where the combat is happening. And that leaves me open to missing a lot of stuff. That leaves me open to missing boss encounter perks that are happening or events that are happening that I need to avoid. It leaves me open for people that run behind me in OPR and try to backcap me. If I could actually place my UI right here above my recounts, like in the middle of my screen, right above where my buffs are, the 5 people, I would never have to look away from the middle of my screen. And never have to look away from the fights. I could see my party while I'm watching the actual fight and not have to look at the left top counter. And for when we actually maybe eventually get raid groups, you could implement it that I get a bar here, like this big, with 10 groups of 5 people. And I could see all of their health bars at the same time. Like, I feel like being able to, if you're not happy with your I can do it like this. If you're not this is actually way easier. If you're not happy with having this here in the lower bottom, but you rather have it on top here, which I would prefer actually, because I don't really, well, if you would like to have chat here on the right, or you would have these on here and your party layout on top here like I would, you could actually change it. So being able to possibly change your UI would bring, I think, a lot of convenience for a lot of people in this game. And those are the, well, trains of thought. It might be a longer video, guys, I know, but I want to, if I talk about something, I want to go in depth. And I want to talk about everything that I'm thinking about that subject at the same time. And that just means that I have a lot to say. So, like I said, this episode might be a little longer, but this is where I'm gonna end up this episode here, guys. I've shown you my bottom. I've shown you everything that I think of might be a good implementation in New World, and some they're already working on, so that makes me really, really happy. Anyway, if you want to see more of my, well, let's play here in New World, or any other train of thoughts that I have, or my quest progression, or my well, my PvP track rewards, like I'm recording actually a lot in this in the New World here now that I think about it. Destiny, yeah, I'm recording Destiny as well. So if you want to see more of Destiny, just hit that subscribe button, guys. It would always help out a lot. I do hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.